Hi guys, we're here with Charlie Johnson. Charlie is someone that I've followed for the last couple of years. I actually saw him training at my gym when I first moved to Vegas in Fit Club, and he had bleached blonde hair. And I thought, that guy is somebody. I don't know exactly who that is, but I know that guy is somebody. And a little bit after that, he disappeared, and I started seeing his ads everywhere. And I thought, oh, this guy is, in the space. He's got an online coaching business. He does really well in his fitness business. He also has a fitness business mentorship program as well. And then we also have crossed paths through mutual mentorships. I went through Robbie's program. He went through Robbie's program. So I have him here. It's a big deal. I'm super excited to chat. Charlie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll get to it.
Big thank you. So my name is Charlie Johnson. I run 7-Figure Scaling Systems, also my fitness business, CJ Coaching. And I'd say what's unique about my background and story is like none of this was ever meant to happen. In particular, coaching coaches like happened by chance. I never wanted to do it. And I think that's where I think sometimes people fall at the first hurdle. They overthink about where they're going to go. Whereas like the reality is I had a big vision from day one of what I wanted to do, which was number one, get out of my job at the time, which was like as a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. So I left there 25th of February, 2019. I knew I wanted to go and build a big online business. And I then went after it from that and just like took it step by step. And I'm not sure if this is something you see, but I think the big mistake I see is people, they're worried about chapter 10, but they're still at chapter 1. Mm-hmm. And the more you just focus about like, what's the next step you need to take rather than like what's at the end of the race, the easier it becomes.
Quick interjection into the podcast. If you're an online coach who's looking to scale the business, get their first 5K month, 10K month, or even get to 50 to 100K month, we have helped hundreds of trainers do this at this point, and I've personally generated over $14 million online in the fitness industry. We have a proven methodology that works, provided you're willing to do the work. Now, if you want to book in a free business audit, we'll break down exactly where you are now, where you want to go, and what's currently holding you back. Hit the link below this video and below the podcast to find exactly how we can help you. Pick a time and we will walk you through the process of where your business is at and what exponential growth looks like. Now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, I think something I've noticed by watching you is that you move with a fucking vengeance. You move quick. You're everywhere. I remember when I first started following your content, you're in this city, you're doing this with this person. I'm like, dude, this guy doesn't stop moving. But it seems like you got almost a late start and that you're like, okay, I got to move big to catch up. Based on the conversation that we had, a couple of days ago. So why don't you bring me back to 2019? How old were you at the time? What was your introduction to the online space and how did you make that shift?
So for me, I remember first thing was happening in the online space, like 2017, 2018. In 2017, I started selling like Word PDF documents for like $40 online. And I remember getting to the point where like I could pay my mortgage and I was like, this is sick.
Wow. And that's pretty good.
Yeah. And I was like, this is baller. And it was like, you can do a lot with this. And then suddenly I started to see like, I met a friend who was making decent money from it. And I think the important thing there is the law of exposure. Mm-hmm. So once you're exposed to something, you can't be unexposed. Mm-hmm. So like now I currently live in Dubai, there's huge amounts of wealth that we've spoken about. And once you see that and what's possible, you can't unsee it. And it changes your thought process around everything. And for me, that's one of the things that really allowed me to then grow because I could see someone else who was starting to get some traction online. It's like, well, if he can do it, then why can't I do it? And then I understood that was my vehicle to then get out like the 9-to-5 matrix of working for a corporate company because no one gets rich with a job. No one gets freedom with a job. You get freedom by having a business or becoming an entrepreneur. And I think the most challenging things with that are actually taking the leap. So for me, for example, I could have left my full-time job 6 months earlier. I procrastinated because I was maybe making $20,000 a month online. I had a salary job where I was making $100,000 a year. So like, I was like living the dream. I had nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
So like, I was just comfortable. But this is the most dangerous place for most people in their life is when they're comfortable. And this is why I think now, when I'm really uncomfortable in business or in life, is like, this is when you grow. And I look back now with fond memories of when I was really uncomfortable then. That's what forced me to grow to where I am now. And I think that's the big pivotal thing. And you mentioned earlier about like the urgency thing. Mm-hmm. I always had that from a very young age. And I remember my dad's friend telling me a story. He was like, the most important thing you need to do is just do it now. He had like a sign on his desk and he was worth like 100 million or something. Wow. And you know that like law of exposure thing. When someone like that much influence tells you that, I'm like, so now I just went to Alex Ramose's workshop. I do some work with them. Like I'm literally on call. The reason I'm late for this, like there's like implementing stuff from that because I'm like, have to do this right now. Because I have this fear when I find something that we're not doing, like, how did I not know this? How much have I lost?
Yeah.
And this is where the biggest tax anyone will pay, ignorance tax.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say that's probably your strong suit. Is you learn something and you implement it, because I've seen it myself just from watching you on social media. But this all happened back in England, correct? And you've told me, and from what I've heard from people who are from England, is that the mindset there is not very entrepreneurial. It's a pretty small town mindset for a country. And so how did you break free from that, having already been into your 9-to-5 job, being surrounded by people that were probably following a very similar path, and you said, actually, I'm going to go way over here, while you were still there?
I would say that was like the lonely chapter of my life from probably 2018 to 2020 to 2021, when no one really understood what I was doing. So like friends of mine at the time is like...
And were you still in your hometown at this time?
Yeah, still my hometown. So people were like, who does Charlie think he is? Why is he not coming out? Like, I distinctly actually remember going on holiday to Mexico for a friend's wedding. And I remember a lot of the time I was having to work, and they're like, why is Charlie not coming hang out by the pool? It's like, I do client check-ins and do stuff. And what's funny now, 7 years later, their lives are exactly the same as they were 7 years ago. And they're like, how have you done all this? But in my head, I'm like, remember back then when you like took the piss out of me and gave me shit? This is the difference. And I think that's the big thing I say from everyone, is the compound effect of everything you do will like accrue over time. And I think that's where every choice you make makes a big difference going forward. So I think you're either going to go do something that's going to take you to where you want to be or take you away. I think one of the big problems is a lot of people don't actually think about where they want to go.
Yeah. I kind of fell into it on accident. I graduated high school in 2014, and 2012, 2013 is when Gymshark and Instagram first get the scene. So I was like, fuck college. I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to get sponsored. But I lived in a very small town called Salinas, California, which is an agriculture town. I had never been on an airplane until I was like 19 or 20, because the closest airport was San Francisco, which is an hour and a half away. I tried to do something in my hometown, but I couldn't make it stick. But it wasn't until my girlfriend at the time, she said, you know, I'm moving to San Diego. You can either come with me or you can stay here. And I thought, well, shit, I got nothing going on over here. I was busting cables. And moving to San Diego transformed my life in ways that I probably wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for that move, because it just puts you in a circle of people who exposing you to different things. So I'm curious, how did you get yourself and your business to pop off in your hometown? What advice do you have to people who are out in Kentucky somewhere? They want to be an online coach, but they don't have the means to make it to a big city yet. They need the business to pop off first in order to make it.
So one of the stories I would tell is when I was an estate agent in the UK.
Yeah.
I used to drive around in my Mercedes car, and I'd listen to Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk. So Grant Cardone for sales, Gary Vee for in terms of content. And they were basically my mentors. They're basically my friends at the time.
Yeah.
Like what I listened to all the time. I'd read the books, listen to the podcasts. So like, if you're not in a position where you can physically surround yourself with those type of people, we live in an era now where you have the best information for free from the smartest people in the world on any subject you want. So you don't have an excuse in that aspect. I say one of the things that helped me at the time is the gym that I trained in had a couple of big fitness influencers who I then saw how they were using content and social media. And I was like, I see what you're doing, but I can do that better from a marketing and sales perspective. I think one of the things that's difficult for people, particularly at the early stages of their journey, is that you'll start to get flack and a bit of grief from people. Like, why are you making this type of content? Why are you posting this online? Why are you putting topless selfies up? And the reality is people need to have thick skins, I think, in particular at the beginning. This is why I think entrepreneurship is really skewed, because at the beginning, you have the least amount of resources, you have the least amount of skills, the least amount of experience, and it's the hardest.
Yes.
And like the more success you have, the easier it gets.
Yes.
So what my advice to anyone is like, if you can eat shit for like the beginning phase and just keep going to be consistent, you will eventually get there if you surround yourself with the right people in the right environment. And it doesn't have to be in a physical setting. It could be like, listen to your podcast, it's my podcast, join your mastermind, whatever. Because the most powerful thing is the people you surround yourself with, and from an information perspective, because your thoughts aren't really your own thoughts. Your thoughts are your interpretation of the information you see every day. So if you can control what you see and you only see positive information, so I don't watch the news, then you then realize success is possible and everyone can become successful.
Yeah, you can literally brainwash yourself to success. I remember my first quote unquote mentor that I listened to was Andy Frisella.
Yeah, Andy Street.
Yeah. Do you remember when he was doing Periscope lives back then? I was on those Periscope lives listening. I was like 17, 18 years old, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. And I was able to brainwash myself into success by reading books, by listening to interviews, by watching podcasts and things like that. But something that I've seen you do really well is, I would say, like, you're a master networker.
Yeah.
I mean, like I mentioned, I've seen you collaborating with so many people in the space that I've looked up to for a very long time. Sure, Dubai makes it easy, but when you're in England, you're probably hitting people all the day. And when you came into Vegas, you slid into my DMs and was like, hey, let's connect. So what is your approach to networking? How do you get yourselves in the right rooms? And, what's the ROI on, the networking?
So to be frank, I say the way I got into a lot of the networks in the beginning is I paid my way in, and even very much now. So I paid to go to big events, the whole major thing yesterday, right? So $5,000 for 2 days. Like, everyone there is a certain caliber of person. I met some sick people. I go to a lot of masterminds in Dubai that are expensive, and I think back, like, what did I get from that event? And I was like, nothing from the event, but I met this person who introduced me to this person that then taught me this advertising thing that completely changed everything. And then I got this referral thing. So the thing you have to think about is not what will it cost, but what will it cause? Because one person can change your life. And what I think is also very powerful is a good friend of mine, Daniel Priestley, talked about this, positioning yourself as a key person of influence. So you become a key person of influence when you get seen as an authority around certain types of people. So if you're making podcasts with high-level people, if you're going to events with high-level people, if you're training with high-level people, your perception of authority goes up, right? So like, we had Dorian Yates speak at our mastermind event in Marbella, huge in the fitness industry. So then my perception in the industry goes up. I've trained them those times, had in my podcast, like, anyone who's into bodybuilding, but like, that's sick. The perception of you goes up. And I think this is where people need to understand marketing is a lot of perception. You have to be able to fulfill what you do. And then also, if someone knows you're connected with someone, they will then trust you because of that. So to give a good example, Ed, who's one of the guys who runs the acquisition.com workshop, messaged me last night to be like, oh, I saw Dan Priestley follows you. Is he a friend of yours? I was like, yeah, I know Dan really well, blah, blah, blah.
And that makes you look good.
But then I'm like, so then my authority is going up again because he wants to know someone I know. So then, but this isn't the game. And this is actually the biggest thing I'd say from people I've met who are very influential and way more successful than me, like 9-figure entrepreneurs and billionaires. When they find someone they like, they'll introduce you to everyone else. So like, Dan would be a great example. He's introduced me to a couple of other people who have been amazing. And it's like that spider web effect. And the best piece of advice I'd always give people is that, like, I can't impress people who are like massively ahead of me with like Ferrari, flashy watch. Like, no one cares. Mm-hmm. But it'd be the same thing for you. And I have the same thing with my clients. I have massive respect when I say something to someone and like, bang, I see them doing it straight away. I'm like, this kid's got it.
Yeah.
And then I want to pour into them and then help them. And it's the same for the people who have the authority in the industry or whatever you're in. If they see that you're taking action, what they tell you to do, they will really try and push you and help you.
Yeah, I love that. I think I totally agree, because there's people in my life that have dramatically changed my life today, that if I look back at the sequence of events, is because I went to some random event and met this person, they introduced me to this person, and now that person's like my best friend. So you really never know where life is going to take you, who you're going to meet, and who those people are going to turn into as well. A lot of the people that I networked back in San Diego in like 2015, 2016, 2017, they were kids. We were all kids. Now they're doing, hundreds of $1,000s a month, and we've all grown together. So it's like, you always want to do your best at meeting as many people as possible, because you never know who that person is going to turn into, or who that person is going to introduce you to as well.
And good people know good people.
And those feathers flock together.
And then they want to help each other, right? So it's like, we've helped each other, introducing each other to different people. And I think that's also the thing of like, if you also go into relationships with the intention of trying to help others, people want to help you. And I think that's actually one of the things, if I speak about Dubai, is really good, is British culture, I try not to slate it too much, is very much like insular. Everyone's afraid, don't steal my toys, don't share what I'm doing. Dubai, everyone's like, oh, Zach, I'm doing this, you should do this, this is crushing it. Like, everyone wants to help each other. And I think the more you get yourself in constructive environments, the easier it becomes to grow, because I basically have a mastermind on my WhatsApp of just whoever I want to talk to that day.
Yeah, that's literally why we're moving to Austin, is for the networking. But tell me about the beginning of your business. So, real estate agent, was fitness always a part of your life? Is it always something that you're super passionate about? When did you decide to go to fitness? What were some dark moments where maybe you experienced some self-doubt and maybe you wanted to turn back, but you didn't? And then what was the moment where things finally started clicking for you?
So I originally became a personal trainer in 2008, and I basically failed. Mm-hmm. So this is my big gripe with PT qualifications, universities, colleges, all that type of stuff. they teach you how to train people, in my opinion, not particularly well, but they don't actually teach you how to run a business, make money, and like live your life.
Or how to coach people too.
Yeah. So like they teach you how to like safely look after people, but they don't teach you how to coach people, psychology, how to sell, and how actually to run this as a business. So I did that for 6 months, essentially failed. I then became a ski instructor. So I did that for a year. I then went into real estate because I was like, seemed like I make money, seems like a safe thing to do. And then fitness was always a huge passion of mine because I'm very driven, and it's something that I like about fitness stuff as relates to you is that with your body, you have complete control. Like I can control what I eat, I can control what I do in the gym, I control everything. Business has a lot of external variables, whereas if you want to be in great shape, you can be in great shape. It's just your own choices. So that's something I was always very passionate about. When I saw what was happening in terms of the fitness industry growing online, I was like, this is my golden ticket out of this 9 to 5 job of like Groundhog Day every single day. Because I remember literally sitting in my office at work, just like wishing the week away. Like I can't even imagine thinking like that now. And the reality is that's how 90% of society lives. But I would say probably the most challenging times for me has been a fair few. One, and this is why I say pain is knowledge really fast. I remember getting an email. This always happens timing wise, right? So I remember getting an email. I was supposed to take like 2 days off with my wife at the time, now divorced, which is another story.
Yeah.
And I got an email as I was like going to the gym to train early so I could take 2 days off at like 5:30. First line is, "You're fucked, your business is going to be shut down." And basically what had happened is I had way too many payment disputes on the payment processor, didn't really know what I was doing, paid no attention to it. And I basically lost $250,000 by a payment processor getting shut down.
Yes.
So that was a big learning curve and a scary thing at the time because I also just invested in some real estate in Dubai. The second big inflection point for me was when I decided I wanted to move to Dubai. I having to split from my wife at the time. And I was sitting 6th of January, I split from a 10-year relationship. 7th of January, I had to give away all my personal possessions, my house, like everything I owned. 8th of January, I was sitting in Kingston Hotel, Hilton, about to speak on a big podcast. I opened my phone, bang, Instagram disabled.
Oh, I've had that happen, dude.
I know, I was like, fuck. And that was like 80% of my revenue at the time. We were doing like $250K a month. And I was like, you know when it rains, it pours? Yeah. In my head, I was just trying to think, this is character building. This is going to be a cool story you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'll shit myself. And I got a photo of myself, like, holding the piece of paper for Instagram, like, the most depressed person in the world. And long story short, 3 weeks later, I got the Instagram account back, but I didn't know that. But that was actually one of the best things that happens to me for my career. One, from a resilience standpoint, but secondly, it also forced me to learn the skill of paid advertising, because up until that point, I was just rinsing organic because, like, you just could. And then that's why we're trying to think, like, when you're going through a difficult period in business or life, what is this trying to teach me? How is this going to help me improve? And then also, like, if it was easy, everyone could do it, and then it would be worthwhile. So, like, if it's hard, it means that, like, the barrier to entry is higher. Because I actually think if something's too easy, it then means everyone could flood in and do it.
Yeah. I believe, now obviously I haven't experienced the death of a family member yet. The two most painful things someone can experience is a breakup and their payment processor being shut down. Every time that happens, it is like a gut punch and everything needs to stop. But I actually had something very similar happen in 2022. My Instagram account went down. And was that around the time that happened for you too?
Just before that, but after this, I've got another story, and this was a good one to get.
I feel like in that 2022 seasons, everyone's account was going down. It was a big scandal. That one put some hair on my balls as well. But go ahead.
So last year, I had an incident with some competitors of mine who tried to, like, publicly slate you and all this other type of stuff, because basically loads of their clients were coming to us because we could help them grow their business. And what they actually did is they hired hackers to hack my Instagram account.
And disable it, right?
And disable it, but then also my clients.
That's fucked up.
To the point where I was paying to get some of my clients' accounts back. And then my own Instagram account, I think, went down like 7 times in 6 weeks. I was getting like threatening WhatsApp calls, demands for €30,000. I went to Facebook, went to the police in Ireland as well. None of them would do anything about it. And they're like,
dude, the same thing happened to me. My Instagram account went down. My wife's account went down. All of my students' accounts went down. It got to the point to where I literally just stopped tagging people because I'm like,
that's why I had to. I couldn't put anything up anywhere.
Yeah. I posted my students, but I wouldn't put their name. I wouldn't put their tag. I wouldn't put, even when they got their plaques for their record months, I'd cross out the name. People were like, you should tag your students. I'm like, I can't. Like, it's shitty situation.
Why do you think some people in the industry are vindictive with that type of stuff?
Dude, I think you're talking about the people who are trying to take other people. That's funny because I had the same thought when you were saying that. I'm like, why is it that you and I can be here and be friends, and I'm friends with personal friends, have the phone number in my contacts with all of our biggest competitors. Every time I hit a record month, it's usually because they say something to me that helps, and I tell them. And so I'm in the space of like, I want to be friends with all. Like, dude, to be honest, I'm gonna be honest. We hit a record month in November. I was more stoked to see that you reached out to me to collab than I was about the record months, because for me, I'm like, the networking, the relationships, it means so much more. And it honestly too, it gives me a bunch of validation, because I'm like, I'm that guy. I'm worthy, you know? But I don't know, man. I think people, maybe it's an insecurity thing. I really don't know, but I can confidently say I don't think those people will last very long.
And I think the difference of that is it's a culture difference between the US and like British European markets. Whereas, you know, I said earlier, everyone in the UK is like, this is my shiny box. Like no one else can have a business in this industry. Whereas the thing I would say is I'm like disruptive. So I'm very aggressive, very direct, very like all over everything. And I think the way I think about business in a lot of respects, I'm trying to laugh at this, but it's like a brute force violence. So like just hit it with a sledgehammer and just go fucking through it. And I think the number one reason I've probably been successful, and a lot of people struggle not to be successful or aren't successful, is they don't take enough action, don't put enough volume into stuff. Whereas like we do 3 YouTube videos a week, 3 podcasts a week, 3 Instagram posts a day. We have 3-4 Instagram accounts. Like
the volume's insane.
Yeah.
And I would say that's what got my fitness business off the ground too. Is like I was relentless in the DMs. Most people don't put in the time to just get the basic first step to build a team is to do the work yourself. And most people aren't even willing to do that. But in the beginning, I was freaking relentless doing that.
Why do you think people aren't willing to put in the work at the beginning? Because I see that as well. And the big thing I think is people they think they're too good to do certain things.
I don't know if they think they're too good to do certain things, but they don't see themselves as the person who needs to do it yet. And they're worried about coming across obnoxious. They're worried about annoying their audience. They're worried of rejection. Dude, I get hate comments every single day, and I laugh and just delete them.
Yeah.
And most people don't have the skin to really take that to the chin. Most people too, when they send a DM, it's really scary. And when the person tells them no, they're good, even though it's not like a straight up like rejection, they take it so personally. Whereas I just didn't care. So I think that when you're coming from a 9-to-5 background, or you're coming from a traditional mindset, you have to go through an identity change and become someone new, become someone who's willing to do the work in order for you to make it across the other side. I see a lot of people, even in our program, that come in that want to be a coach, but the people that succeed are the coaches, the people who see themselves as a coach. They just need the business aspect. And so they've been posting fitness content. All their friends know that they're the fitness people. And so it's not hard for them to get a kickstart because they're already that person. Whereas other people who are coming into this with different backgrounds have to first become that person and then do the work.
So like my big thing with that is that's where people aren't congruent with what they're doing. So like I fucking love business. I love making content. So like if I didn't need money, I would still just do this anyway because I don't know what else I do. Because I'm really passionate. I enjoy doing this thing. And I like learning. I like the process of helping others. And I think when you surround yourself with what you actually like doing, it's not work. Like work is technically my addiction because it's like what I like doing. So for me, it's almost like this is a big video game I'm playing. Like, how much can I try and improve this thing? And I think the problem I see is that too many people sometimes try and come into online fitness coaching or any online business or any business just trying to make a quick buck. But if you're going to try and make a quick buck, you don't really want it enough. So then when it's not easy, you're like, well, it's too hard, I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, I've even had people be like, hey, I don't really want to be an online coach. I just wanted to make money. Those are the people that don't last very long.
Or they don't even like fitness in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So something to work. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about the moment where you felt like you made it. Like, what was that moment? Was there any specific one moment?
So it's funny you say that. So someone asked me maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. It's like, when did you get rid of imposter syndrome? Mm-hmm. And it was probably only like 18 months ago, maybe. I'd still already done like 10 million or something plus in sales at that point. And I think...
Why do you think that is?
I hold myself to a very high standard. I think depends on different personality types. So like transparent, I do a lot of work with therapists to try and like understand my own way I think. I think it's something very valuable people should do, because the more you understand how you think, you can manage yourself to a higher level. But I will put myself through the fucking grind more than I need to sometimes, and try and almost like self-sacrifice myself, think I need to do more, when in reality you need to do less. I think once you flip that on its head and you understand and you start to actually look back at like what you've achieved, then you're like, okay, cool, yeah, maybe I don't need to be an imposter anymore.
Yeah.
I think for me, some of the big breakthroughs, that was actually when I started helping coaches and like really change their life. I was like, wow, this is impact.
Yeah.
Because I think getting someone six pack and in great shape is cool, but if you can change someone's entire family's financial life, that has a lot more impact than just getting someone abs for 8 weeks. And I think for me, that's probably the thing that gave me a lot of validation, but also a huge amount of fulfillment and like self-worth from that.
When did you make the switch?
I launched Seven Figure Scaling Systems in June 2022. So I think probably the summer that you saw me here.
Yeah.
Where I had like ropey blonde hair. And I think that for me was just by accident. So like a good friend of mine, Antoine Blanco, who actually now is a business coach as well in France, I helped him scale his fitness business. He basically asked me in terms of like how, like, will you just help me mentor me? Like, I know what you've done, you crush it at fitness, blah, blah, blah. I was like, look, dude, I don't do this. I don't want to do this. And he's like, look, I really do help. It's like, fine. I just made a price and he paid me. And I was like, you know, I actually really enjoy doing this and this is really fun. So then one thing led to another and it got out of hand. I think
it got out of hand.
Yeah, it just snowballed, right? And I think that's the law of accumulation. Like over a period of time, it just scales up. And I think you then find what your real passion is. And I think that's actually one of the problems sometimes when you're younger is I was always very driven from 18 to 30 and I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what to do. And the reason I feel now that I have to do things quickly is that I didn't have that thing when I was younger. So I feel like I'm playing catch up. But I think I said to you the other day, when I was 25, there wasn't really Instagram.
Yeah.
I maybe just started.
I was lucky. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was lucky. I had an Instagram at like 16.
Yeah.
You know, just like the formative years of Instagram where I was able to see people's life change dramatically. But yeah, I can imagine it's probably tougher for people who are already so far in their own ways by the time they're 25 to get something pop off like this.
I think I was probably the last window into that. I think I'm very grateful though, because I actually try and flip it on its head. That one of the reasons I did was because I had a lot of experience in another industry of managing other people. So when I understood how to market and use social media, and then knew how to manage teams, hire people, sell, like how a business should operate. Whereas if I was like 18 or 21 and had no experience, would I have been so successful? Maybe not.
I had a really hard time, to be completely honest. I decided at 16 that fitness is what I wanted to do. I knew that online coaching wasn't a thing until like 2017, 2018. So back then in 2014, it was like you get a massive following, you sell $30 workout plans and you get a sponsorship. And so that was my plan.
The Duncan Lucas model.
Exactly. And I struggled because it never popped off for me. I was never that guy. I was a young kid. I didn't have the physique. I didn't have the network. I didn't have, any of the things to make me pop off. So I had to work, odd jobs. I worked at a yogurt shop, worked at bussing tables, did that for 4 years. And so finally, when I was around 23, 24, mentors hit the scene. And do you remember Sterling Griffin?
Recognize the name.
Okay. He was the first person I came across. It was Sterling Griffin. And then there was Brian Mark at the time too. That was the first time I learned that you can hire somebody to teach you how to run a business. And I was broke as shit. And so I spent like a year or two to save up $5,000 to $10,000 and finally invested into my first business mentor. And I hit $10,000 45 days later. Right. So yeah.
And that is something very rare that people have the British term like minerals to do, to be able to save up that much money from working hard to then invest in it. What was that a difficult thing for you to do, or did you know that's something you?
Dude, I was driven by fear because where I grew up, the only opportunities there is really to work for a farm, work in agriculture, or the state. And I knew I didn't want to do any of those things. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom was very, what about taxes? What about health insurance? What about retirement? And so I, as a young kid, was like, I'm on my own. Like, I need to figure this out myself. And so, dude, I hustled my ass. I worked, when I lived home at my parents' house for 2 years after high school, I turned my mom's garage into a personal training studio. And I would drive to my high school, pick up kids in my car, bring them back to my house and train them each for $10 an hour. I would do that Monday through Friday, and then Friday through Sunday, I'd be busting tables. And I did that for about 2 years, saved up a good stack of cash, moved down to San Diego, and got a job busting tables immediately. And I picked up every single shift I could. I was working Monday through Sunday, working doubles when I could. And because I knew, I'm like, I have to save up money and figure it out. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing this forever. And speaking about my dark moments, when I was 22, that was the moment when I realized, okay, something has to happen quick, because all of my friends at the time were starting to graduate college and get real jobs. And I hadn't even gotten like my associate's degree. And I was still busting tables. They passed me up on a waiting position. And so like, dude, where do I go? Like, what do I do? And so I'm like, I'm going to launch my online fitness business. I got one person interested. I sold them $50 per month for 3 months. So I made $150. And I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm quitting my job. I have enough cash saved up and I'm going all in on the coaching business.
Burn the boats.
Yeah, because I literally had no option.
Do you ever think about what if you hadn't done that?
Dude, to be honest, if I hadn't done that, I would have found something different. I was always tinkering. I tried to launch a clothing brand. I tried to do a supplement company. I tried to be a videographer. Like there was always something I was trying to do. But online coaching was the thing that I knew the most, and that I actually like had the passion for and the skill set for it. So it was a perfect storm.
It's funny you say that, because the same thing for me. I tried Forex trading.
Yep. I lost a lot of money with Forex trading.
That one. And then I set up a CBD company that didn't work. And then I suddenly realized like you should probably just stick to what you know. Mm-hmm. And I think if I was to give one big takeaway from the spending some time with the Moses last 2 days, was like, just pick one thing and just do it really, really well for a period of time, and just don't do anything else, and just get better at that one thing.
I tell my clients that all the time. I have clients that are like, because once they get into our high level program and they're starting to make money, I'm really passionate about finances and investments, and I get them set up on like a retirement plan. I teach them where to invest their money, and they're like, well, what do you think about this meme coin? What do you think about? And I'm like, they're playing different games. Like you are a business owner, and your active income is coming through your business. So focus on that and put your passive income into something that you can confidently grow. That's not going to take up a ton of time. But you can't compare what you're doing for your active income against some 25-year-old who's trying to get rich, and that's his active income. You're playing a different game.
And I think that's also where people get distracted and go down the rabbit hole. And like transparently, I'm big into crypto, and I've done that. I think in 2021, I remember like sitting in my office, which was like a shed in my garden in the UK at the time, which is quite funny. I built like a multi-million-dollar business in a shed with no heat.
Yeah.
On it. But I had like screens everywhere with crypto stuff, and I was supposed to be working, and I was just like trading cryptos all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where you learn from mistakes, but the important thing of when you have a mentor is to be able to give you the guidance of like
what not to do.
Dude, like that's the biggest mistake you're making right now, and it will listen to this, you don't even realize you're doing. But you have a blind spot of something you're not aware of. And there's only someone with experience who like, yeah, you definitely should not be doing that. That can save you 6 to 12 months.
When did you decide to buy the Ferrari?
When?
Yeah. Well, like what was, because it sounded like, from what I gather from your podcast, it doesn't sound like you care all that much.
I've always wanted a Ferrari, always wanted a supercar. And that's actually probably a validation thing of like, I didn't feel worthy. I could afford the car like fucking years ago, but I didn't feel worthy to go and buy it. And this is a funny story. So you can actually go and find this podcast. I did a podcast with a guy called Matt Fidesz. So Matt was ironically Michael Jackson's bodyguard. He has the biggest franchise of martial arts gyms in the world, like worth a couple $100 million. And he said to me, like, the podcast, like, dude, I want you to buy the fucking car. Because like he's in supercars. And I was like, he's like, it will make you more money anyway, just buy the car. So it's like straight off the podcast, like messaged Ferrari dealership, but like 3 days later I bought one.
Nice.
So like, even I said to you earlier about people who are successful will be like impressed by you taking action. I think he's always had respect for me from that straight away, because like kids just went and bought a car straight away.
I love it.
I didn't even look at another one. I was like, I like that one, let's buy that one. And I think that's also where sometimes you need someone who's older with some experience, but like, dude, like you work really hard. If you want that thing, you can have it. Because I think as much as I say, probably most males do the other way, where they spunk all the money out the wall on stupid cars and jewelry they shouldn't be buying. I was probably very much the other way, where I put all my money into like real estate assets, and I lived well, but I wouldn't buy the things I wanted. And we've spoken on this before, but like once you got one decent car, you got the watch you want, like you don't really want another one. So like, you got the thing, you're then happy. And I think for me, like one of my favorite things is getting in the car and just caning it to the gym in the morning. And just gives you a bit of a dopamine hit every day, and just gives you that feel good factor. Yeah.
I was the same way. I had a Honda Civic, and I told myself that I would drive that thing into the ground And I also told myself that I was going to wait until I had 7 figures net worth, not revenue, not sales, but like in my bank account before I was going to buy the Corvette. And it happened when we moved here to Vegas, and it's all right. Like it's cool, but I think for me, like what makes me happier than the things is being able to wake up when I want to, hit the gym at 9 a.m. on Tuesday with my friends, and then talk to clients all day long.
Yeah.
I freaking love that.
I think there's 3 things I always wanted. There's time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. So like once I'd pretty much achieved that, I'd crack the code, because there's like, want to go to Vegas, the cost was that next to it. Like if you want to go to the Maldives, want to go to Miami, like you can do whatever you want. And I think that's where your ability to have life on your own terms is very powerful, because then it's a limitless life where you can go anywhere, do anything, could be anyone you want, rather than, in my opinion, what society wants to do, in particular in Europe, is they want you to conform, put you into a box, and you stay there until you fucking die.
Yeah, I agree. I just got hit up by a good friend of mine the other day. I was like, yo, do you want to hit Rio Carnival for March 5th? I'm like, dude, I'm in. Like, count me in. I bought my ticket. We're going.
That's sick.
Yeah. But tell me about Dubai. What's that been like for you? You've been there for about 2 years.
3 years.
3 years now. How transformative has it been for you?
So for anyone who hasn't been, Dubai, I would say, is like Disneyland for adults. In my opinion, it's the best place in the world, and there's a couple of reasons why. One of the big things I didn't even contemplate until I'd moved there or really notice is the safety aspect. I've lived there 3 years.
Let's talk about why you decided to move there first, and then we can go into it.
So the reason I decided to move there, one is, for anyone who's been to the UK, you probably understand why you want to leave. The weather is horrendous. So like I suffer a bit with SAD, like seasonal anxiety disorder or something. Like when it's bad weather, I just feel depressed. So I always want to live by the sea. I want to live in the sun. I want to live by the beach. So that was a huge thing. Second was in terms of like networking opportunities, like super fast pacing to get to people. And the third, the big thing is, if you want to have financial freedom in life, the biggest expense you will have in your life is tax.
Yes.
So if you can take that off the table, you can get rich really fast. So if I make $1 million, I now keep $1 million.
That's insane.
In the UK, if I make $1 million, I would keep like $250,000.
Yeah.
So in one single sweep, I basically like 4x'd my income.
Yeah.
Just moving country to somewhere I wanted to go anyway. And I think it was a big change, and it put me through the mill a little bit psychologically, maybe, because I originally grew up in the countryside, green fields everywhere. I now live in a skyscraper in Dubai Marina next to the sea. So I think that took a bit of getting used to. But you mentioned earlier, like your authority network I have, none of that would happen at that level if I wasn't there, because the access to the best people in the world there is insane. Yeah, because Dubai is like a melting pot for the best talent everywhere, where everyone's coming into, and everyone wants to support each other and connect.
I love that. Yeah, all of the people I look up to are all in Dubai. But we have roots here in the US, so I definitely want to do a trip out there.
Yeah, 100%. If you go, you've got to go for at least 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Yeah, that's easy.
It's, I would say the other big things there is like the best restaurants in the world, the best service in the world. There's only one downside, which is why I came to Vegas that summer. The heat in the summer is like 50 degrees Celsius. So it's hotter than here, but the humidity is like 80%.
Yeah.
So
you guys dry.
You can't go outside. It's like insane.
Did you know about Vegas before? Because you were in England and then you moved to Dubai and then you came to Vegas for a week or a couple of weeks, months?
So I've been to Vegas once before, which is ironically on my stag do. And I actually recorded a podcast on this week because I just thought it was funny to talk about the difference in my lifestyle now compared to then, because I came here in, I don't know, 2017. 2018, and was like a massive degenerate.
Yeah. Oh, this is the place to do it. Yeah.
Drinking, strip clubs, drugs, like all that type of stuff. And I look back now and I'm like, who you are now versus who you were then, and the habits you have are completely different. And I say the biggest things that will make someone successful are their habits every day. And I think if you focus on the daily process of what you do and not the end result, eventually you'll get the result you want. And I think the reason a lot of people struggle is they focus too much on the result. And when the result doesn't come quickly, they stop. But if you just focus on taking the right daily habits, the right actions every day, you eventually get to where you want to be, and you also get proud of yourself and get confidence.
Yeah, I agree. It's people always tell me, like, or they ask me, like, what do you need to do on a daily basis? And what I always tell them is, like, You just need to do a little bit of the right things every single day. And you don't have to work, 12, 16 hours a day and cram in, unless you're working like a 9 to 5 and you have to work the after hours. But when you're first going full time, it's more so about the daily habits that you have to just do the simple work, which is just create content, do a little bit of lead gen, take a few sales calls, make sure your clients are happy. You can do that in like 4 to 5 hours a day and build a really massive business. It doesn't have to take all this upfront work. It's just slowly chipping away at the daily actions.
And the biggest problem I see with people is that they're inefficient in their processes of doing it. So like, if I was to give some insight to people of how to make that easier, it's like, this is something I hammer home into people you have to do, is plan tomorrow, today. So it's like the end of today is Wednesday. Okay, so the end of Wednesday, like what do I need to do tomorrow? What are the 3 things I have to do first thing I get up? Bang, bang, bang. And if you get up and you just do those 3 things, you've already won the day. If you then just make your content, do whatever the other busy work you have to do in business, it's then easy. And people just struggle, in my opinion, because they're not actually organized to do the work. And it's like the activation energy to do the thing that almost puts them off more than doing the work itself.
Dude, it's an interesting thing that you say, because I've worked with about 2,000 personal trainers now since P2VI, and you often forget how much personal organization and just good daily habits for being organized is important for building a successful business. I had one girl that was like, she was frustrated that her business wasn't working, and I was like, "When do you start work?" She's like, 10:30 a.m. I'm like, "What are you doing for the first half of the morning?" She's like, "Oh, I take my dog for a walk, I do a little bit of meditation, I read, I journal." Like, no, you just need to get to work and just reorganize your schedule in order for you to be successful.
So one of the first things I do is look at someone's calendar.
Yep.
And I'm like,
that'll tell you a lot. Yeah.
The 2 things that will tell you where someone's going to go in life is if you look at someone's calendar, there are actually 3 things: their calendar, their bank statements, and their YouTube, like their search list,
like
what they watch. Yeah. So like, someone watches like educational stuff, they're trying to learn about business stuff, that's a good thing. If you spend all your money on like learning and mentorship, whatever, like positive, right? If your calendar is packed with like learning time, deep work, like actually doing tasks rather than like taking the dog for a walk for 5 hours every single day. Not that you shouldn't take your dog for a walk, but I think people procrastinate too much on actually doing the thing. Whereas like, I said earlier that I work with a therapist. I understand myself very well. I have a very addictive personality and I'm a massive dopamine addict. So like for me, I'm like, okay, cool. If I get up early and I crush 2 to 3 things are important, dopamine. So I'm like, come like 8 a.m., I'm on a high and I'm like buzzing. Yeah. I feel like I've won the day already. So for me, that's like, okay, I've already crushed it and I could just sit around in my pads all day if I wanted to. Yeah. Not that I'm going to, but that I think is also understanding. One of the most important things I actually said at one of our events recently is that, and I don't know if this will hit home to anyone listening, but it's like, never do anything that will make yourself feel guilty. So for example, today I was really tired from the last 2 days and jet lag. Every day this year, I've got up before 5:30. My alarm went off at 5:30 and I was like, don't wake up. I was like, just don't be a pussy. I was like, you've gotten up like 35 days in a row. It's like, you have to get up. Yeah. And I got up. And that's why I also try and look at like gamifying the process, because I don't mean to like video games. Like when you're on a hot streak, you want to keep going. Like you want to keep killing the zombies. So I was like, you're getting out of bed whether you like it or not. Yep. So the more you can like gamify life and try not to put too much stress in it, the easier it becomes.
I like it. What's on the game plan for 2025?
So for us, it's really looking to try and scale our audiences from a media perspective. We've also got a software business that we're launching, and then to scale much more in terms of what we're doing with actually our fulfillment side. I want to build the best backend account internally in terms of what we do. Basically, my idea is to build like gym launch for like online coaches and just really try and crank that through the roof. Probably slightly insane when to take it to that level, but it's probably the idea we have. And I think for me, it's more about the game than the end result. I enjoy the process of building a thing and trying to fix stuff, which actually I'd say for the introvert listeners to this can relate, is that I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we break stuff so we have something to fix. And one of the most stupid things I remember saying is, I said this, I can remember the distinct moment. I was like strutting around in the sun in Spain in the summer in like July. And I was with my girlfriend, I was like, this is just too easy. It's like I'm crushing everything. And then like I didn't really have much to do. And then I had all this shit kick off with people like disabling Instagram accounts, like, and who brought that on? Myself. Yeah. So I think also one of the things to think about is that business goes in cycles. So like when you're crushing it, like that will pass. Yeah. When you're having bad times, that will pass. And you mentioned earlier about mentors and networks. A friend of mine, a mentor, was texting me on Sunday. He used to be a fitness client. He's a billionaire from Iceland. And I was like, how do you handle like the ups and downs of business? Because he said he had a slow year last year, and he's like, he said we throw some stoic stuff. And he's like, the best saying is like, when there's good times it'll pass, when there's bad times it'll pass.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I go by a motto that says, in times of adversity, live in hope.
Yeah.
And times of prosperity, live in fear. Is always,
You know, it's going to come.
it's gonna come.
But I don't know if this relates to you more as well. Is why I'm asking is that when I have a sick month, I'm like, well, everything's crushing. I'm like,
You think it's gonna last forever?
just remember this, because like in 2 months, something will be going bad.
Yeah.
And just think back to like, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
I know 100%, because this is something that my wife has helped me with a ton, is that she kind of brings me back down to earth and is like, hey, remember 2 months ago when you were having those problems and now you're crushing it? Just remember this now in 2 months when things are going to get tough again. So it's good to have her kind of bring me back down.
Do you see a time period in those types of cycles sometimes?
So I will say from 2020 to 2023 was like record month after record month after record month. 2020, the middle of 2023 to about the end of 2024, so a little over 18 months, things slowed down pretty significantly for us. Now, we were still profitable, we were still good, but we didn't beat the year last year, we matched it. This year, things are popping off again. And I'm like, okay, cool, this could be a record year for us. So I don't know, maybe when I have 10 years in this business, I can confidently say like, these are the cycles. But I heard Andy Frisella say one time that business happens in 4-year cycles. 4 years where you're growing, 4 years where you're rebuilding. And I think that lined up pretty perfectly with the timeline of starting in 2020 and hitting that 4-year mark where we had to restructure everything in the business in order for us to grow.
I agree with that. Actually, that's probably one of the things I feel like we're going through at the moment is you grow really quickly and then you get like operational debt to debt because you've scaled really, really fast, but maybe your team's not good enough, like the systems aren't good enough because you're like papering over things that are like just holding it together until they start to burst because there's too much going on. And I think that's also the benefit of when you've got someone to give you advice to be like, okay, Zach, when you get to this point, you need to do this, you need to do this, so that when you get to here, the whole thing doesn't fall apart. And I've seen that happen to a lot of people with businesses. So I think even to give an example from a financial perspective, which you're very switched on with, is that I see people who are coaches invest way too much of their money into like real estate. Mm-hmm. They have a bad month and then
they're cash flow is fucked.
They're fucked. So like, which I think is also where you have to protect to the downside sometimes, which is actually one of the reasons why like crypto is like a liquid asset. If you had an issue, you can't pull it out. If you put $1 million into a property, I can't pull out my stone in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take a while.
Yeah. We had the same issue happen. 2024 was all the decisions that we put in place when we launched the business finally caught up to us in 2024. We had to spend the entire year redoing a lot of those decisions. And what's great is that, do you know who Jordan Duggar is?
Recognize the name.
IFCA.
Okay.
He's one of the bigger competitors here in the US. He does what we do. Yeah, I sat down with him and he's like, yeah, this is where you're fucking up. Like, do this, do this, do this. And I'm like, dude, we're in battle together and you just gave me a sharper sword. Like, that's the fucking coolest thing ever. And a lot of the decisions that we put in place, it wasn't going to be until a year later that those were finally going to take effect. And a year later, we hit a record month.
So it's funny. So I don't think I said this earlier. I spoke to Alex Hormozy yesterday and I was like, we need to scale our front end. Do I focus on paid ads? If so, what strategy? Do I focus on our organic? And he's like, give me your business numbers. He's like, neither of those. You need to fix your churn and you need to increase your LTV. That's it.
That's what we did.
Yeah,
that was our issue. Is that we added in a back-end offer, we added in a re-sign offer, and now I'm going to be doing a one-on-one offer. Will hopefully take us over 300K per month. Yeah. That's what we want to hit this year. Is our first 300K month.
That's sick. I think the beauty with online in fitness and business, the market's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. So anyone who thinks it's saturated is lying to themselves, because one of the things that is always very positive when there's competition in a marketplace shows there's money.
Yes.
Because if people weren't trying to come into it, it means there's no money there.
Yep.
So I think that's also like a supply and demand curve. And I think the online space is going to go from strength to strength to strength.
Yeah. I mean, dude, 10 years ago, this didn't even exist. Now people are looking at programs like ours as an alternative to university, which ultimately is my goal. Like that's, for me, I was a struggling teen because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And And so this gave me an opportunity to find my passion and build a career and be much more successful than I ever even thought possible. And so I love being able to provide that to somebody who's lost and young and needs a roadmap to, be successful.
I don't know if this resonates, but like the reason I do what I do now is to help the younger version of me.
Yes.
Because I didn't know what to do, how to, when to do it. I had a lot of really poor advice from mentors who then stabbed me in the back later on. And I think that's also, where you can become your own hero, if that makes sense, to help the younger version of you. And I think it's then if you build something that you're actually almost building for yourself to then give back selfishly, you love the process, but the thing you build will be sick.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, this is what I want to do for forever, essentially. But to wrap things up, out of the whole entire conversation, for someone who is looking to get started in this space, they're looking into the online space, they haven't launched a business, and they're looking at someone like you who's balling out of control, living the life in Dubai, what advice do you have for that person?
One thing I'd say is when you look at myself, Zach, whoever it might be in the industry, is look through things to the right lens. So someone might look at someone who's successful, and maybe I did this previously when I was younger, and be like, fuck that guy, or have envy.
Mm-hmm.
But what you want to do when you feel envious is you either need to lower your standards or increase your work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's understanding from your perspective, if you're listening to this, if someone's done the thing you want to do, that means you can do it too. So for me, for example, particularly where I'm from the UK, no one had done what I did. So I had to blaze a path on my own and just figure shit out.
Yeah.
And it's actually easier when people have already cut that path through the jungle for you. You're not trying to hack down the trees and find a way. So I think it's figure out what you want to do, figure out why you're going to do it, and then find someone to do it. And I think the biggest thing most people don't do is they don't actually spend time thinking about clearly, probably the big three questions to ask is quite deep. Is one, what do you really want? Deep down, what's the lifestyle you want? How much money you want to make? What truly makes you happy? What's your purpose? Second thing is how badly do you want it? Is it surface level? I just want to make a bit of money, or you'd fucking die trying. So I might die trying. Thirdly is how much you're willing to suffer to get there.
Yeah.
Because the reality is you are going to suffer.
Yeah.
And it is going to be shit at places.
Yeah.
So if you're if you come to me or Zach and you're cool, I want to be able to make 100K a month, and I'm willing to work as hard as possible. I'll do whatever it takes. And I'm willing to suffer. I don't give a shit. You will achieve it if you have that work ethic. But if you're you want to dip your toe in the water, but then you want to have massive results, the two aren't congruent.
I love it. Charlie, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it too.